We can't start until you start, Gia.
Oh, I'm well aware.
The party don't start till you walk in.
I do need some water. Not everybody stays silent as I drink my water.
What were we supposed to do?
That was the most awkward sip of water I've ever taken.
Product placement, bro.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Is it facing the right camera, though?
It's facing both cameras. I'm sure it's probably in frame for both.
No, it's definitely not. All right, sorry. On track.
3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, to Fail Better, Suck Less. I am your host, Giovanni. We have Coach Lizzie Hope. We have Tough Tempo owner, Mr. John Weeks. And we have Coach Steve Smith. And today, given that we are ending out 2023, we wanted to talk a little bit on some goal-setting tips, advice. New Year's resolutions usually comes up around this time of the year. And we have our own thoughts on the matter for New Year's resolution. Lizzie, do you want to talk a little bit on how you feel about New Year's resolutions overall?
Oh, we're getting into the negative stuff like just immediately.
Well, and I guess what is the difference on how we're going to approach today on setting goals and how that differs, like with the bits of advice that we can give as coaches, as us personally, and how that differs from setting like the typical New Year's resolutions that you hear every year.
Yeah, tear it down so we can build it back up.
Tear it down. I mean, I look at New Year's resolutions kind of like the phrase, the diet starts Monday. Right?
Oh, okay, nice.
That's kind of how I see it. Like, if you have a goal in mind, there shouldn't be anything stopping you from starting that today, maybe tomorrow. But like saying like, oh, 2024, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. You know that's your goal. What is it, December 12th?
It is, yeah.
Why wait?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how I feel about it. Get started now.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't expecting that. John, you have anything to add on that?
No, I love that. I think that it's resolutions a lot of times I think are unrealistic because they're not backed up with any kind of like sustainable framework, right? So like goal setting, which we're going to get into, like there should be some things that support that effort and reinforce that effort so you have like momentum. Resolutions, it's like, well, this is like the 10th year in a row that I'm going to like go to the gym and work out, 4 days a week. And it's like, I've never stepped foot in a gym ever. Right. So the expectation isn't realistic because there's no behaviors that support that outcome that really are already a part of your life.
And I feel that there's also like a lot of pressure that adds on to resolutions, and heaven forbid that life takes over, right? Just an unfortunate circumstance that may derail you. It's like immediately things just take a negative turn for the worse. And that can just ultimately negate any kind of momentum that you would have had towards that resolution.
Right.
Steve, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all that. And I think that like resolutions are always seen as like a marker, right? It's just do this because it's what we do, right? Every year is like, oh, what's your resolution? But you should have a more defined reason as to why you want to do this. It's not something that's just because it's a new year. It's
Right.
because I actually want to get fitter, or I want to eat healthier or something.
Yeah.
Those are me, for personally, more motivating factors than that's 2024.
Right.
Why not?
Why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And given that New Year's resolutions, I think, comes up again all the time at the end of the year, how do we plan for that? And today we're going to talk a little bit more on that goal setting method. Different approaches and a very specific way, John, that you were mentioning right before we started the podcast, quite literally the SMART approach
Right.
to goal setting. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where I heard the acronym the first time, but I've known about it for a long time. But setting SMART goals, and SMART stands for specific, measurable, obtainable, relevant, and time bound, right? So you have these kind of characteristics of this goal that you're setting that make it much more achievable because you're having markers that you can kind of check off as you're going. So you need to really be specific about what your goal is. If it's too ambiguous, it's too open-ended, you're not going to be able to really like get there, right? If it's not measurable in some sort of way, which kind of ties into like what we do with fitness and CrossFit. It's like you should be tracking things that are showing you that you're making objective progress towards your goal. It should be attainable. So it shouldn't be this goal that is like so outlandish that there's no way you're ever going to meet it. You have to set one that's like realistic in that sense. It should be relevant in the sense, like, to your point of like, it should be something that means something to you, right? It shouldn't be a goal that you're setting because you think it's important to somebody else. It should be something that's relevant to your life. And it should be time bound, because if you don't put that kind of cap on it, a lot of times it's really easy to just fall off. There's no accountability if there isn't a little bit of like pressure to push you to do the work on a consistent basis to get there. And if you have those factors in place, really regardless of what the goal is, it doesn't have to be fitness related, it could be anything. It's a lot easier to keep yourself pushing forward towards that.
I like that. And that, I feel like that almost gives you a system for accountability to hold, like, to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a lot of times I think with resolutions, you'll tell your significant other, friends, whomever, you know, and I don't know, that feels a lot less kind of pressure bound on me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I had never heard it until right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I really like that approach. And then going into a little bit more on the specifics, let's go around and each person can give just kind of one bit of advice. You know, like what's a tip that you would give Lizzie, you know,
Yeah.
for goal setting?
So John kind of touched on it. I think you might have even touched on it just now, but picking your goal for you and nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the time in the world we live in, you have social media, you're constantly texting, you're constantly talking to people, and people do kind of post and say things for that reassurance from their friends and from their family.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it easy to be like, my goal is to run a half marathon. Like, right? Question mark. Like, do you approve of that goal? So just making sure that your goals are for yourself. If this is your goal, why are you doing it? And if it's because of someone else around you, do you have a goal that you're doing for yourself? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question to ask.
So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
John?
I think to piggyback on that, I think just kind of sharing my thought with that is, if it's really for you, it's going to be much more fulfilling, right? So if you're setting a goal that you're not going to be happy with once you get there, like, what's the point of the
Mhm.
goal, right? So I think that that fulfillment piece is super important. And if you're setting the right kinds of goals, I think you'll find that it is a lot more fulfilling. But the other thing that really I have found works really well for me is less is more. So if I'm setting a goal, like, let's say I have a weight loss goal, right? And I want to lose 15 pounds. It's like 15 pounds is a really big number. And that probably feels a little bit insurmountable, right? When I kind of conceptualize that. And it's like, okay, but what if I'm going to be tracking, I'm doing all the things that I need to do objectively, but why don't I really just focus on like the first like 3 or 4 pounds, right?
Mm.
Focus on that. And then what happens is when you achieve that goal, now you feel this sense of accomplishment and you are motivated to work even a little bit harder towards the next piece. And then you can kind of chop it up into increments like that, as opposed to looking at the big goal as the only way to measure it, right? Find ways to track it and make it almost like a game. But then that way you're having fun with the process and you're engaged with the process, as opposed to pass fail, right? In that fixed mindset that so many people, I think, have fallen into about so many things.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, you like those little mini games, like
Yeah.
the mini goals.
Yes, absolutely.
I also think it sets you up for, like, going back to the 15 pounds thing. It sets you up to be able to be like, okay, 5, 7, 8 pounds in,
Mm-hmm.
15 is too much. Like, I want to change that final destination.
uh-huh.
Absolutely.
So it sets you up to like revisit and
Yep.
come up with something else, or be like, okay, we're good here.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of plays into what I was going to bring up, is the time bound section, and that's really, really vital for me, especially because I'll I am a procrastinator at heart. So, I know that I will easily fall off if I don't set something that I know I can hit. So if I focus on 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
the days of the week, so working calendar, full week, weekends too, those little things will allow me to get that confidence that I need to continue it
Mm-hmm.
going forward. And I think that's really big. Otherwise, you fall into that trap where weekends don't count and there's 52 weekends, so where are we going to go with that?
Yeah.
How easy is it to hit that 10th weekend and just be like, I did really well for the first 9.
Right.
I don't think I need this anymore.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a thing of, like, to your point, you might get to a certain point and think, you know what, like, I'm actually really happy with this progress, but this wasn't exactly what I wanted. So you can pivot, but you're doing it in a way of like you're self-aware and you're happy with where you're at and you're objectively choosing to do something different. Or it's like, oh, that last couple of pounds or, whatever the goal is really. But like if you're like 80% there, is the 20% realistic anymore? Is it something that is needed, right? Or is it something where it's like, I thought this is what I needed, but actually this isn't exactly it. Now you have a different goal moving forward. So I think it's interesting because goals can change. And I think, again, talking about that fixed mindset, if you're like really focusing on this like hard, fast rule as opposed to the process, it can create a lot of toxic thinking, right? You can have this kind of self-talk and stuff that becomes really self-sabotaging. If you're really not attached to the process, you're more attached to the outcome.
Yep.
So I think being attached to the process is really important.
Yeah.
To kind of touch a little bit on what you were saying, John, for me, I like to think of like some goal settings that maybe you've already established this past year for 23, whatever it may be, and to maybe reinforce it, how to keep that sustainable, how to improve on that, not to get mushy here, but I will say, and I was thinking about this today because I was talking about it, is my relationship with you, John.
Oh my God.
And
Do
I
you need to
and
leave?
Do you want to come sit on this couch?
I missed that side of the couch. But here, and the reason I say this is because it wasn't a goal of mine necessarily in 23, but I think it happened very naturally, is that you and I debrief so much throughout the year. And it's something that I have found to be a very prominent aspect of my life on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, what we debrief, what we talk about, how we plan for. And my goal is to reinforce that, right? So whatever you may have picked up on in 2023, if you can find a way to reinforce that, to make it stronger, to make it better, you've already started that process, right? Why not fine tune it? Why not make that sustainable for the future?
Right.
That to me stood out. And that's something I know, we've already cemented that, right? And I can grow off that.
Right.
So that's something to me.
I'm over here they debrief every day.
This has got to ruin it.
The mood is gone.
Gotta ruin
Anyway, let's go around and let's go back to Steve and give your second point, another point for goal setting.
So I think oftentimes we want that goal that's either physical or, something in the gym, fitness wise, but there can be other goals too. It doesn't have to be specific to the gym, right? So thinking about mental health, just taking time to, really analyze what's going to make you better every single day. So I think kind of focusing on that as well. Obviously you want to continue to push the boundaries of your fitness or, your health, but sometimes you need to take that step and say, is this the healthiest way to achieve that? And just kind of realign yourself with that. So that's one of those goals that I like to set, not just the physical side, but also the am I in the right headspace to get to where I need to be?
And I think that's also a little bit, I mean, thank you for touching upon that. Because I know we were talking, and this is like very much a fitness podcast, but we touch upon so many other aspects of life, you know, and like I said, to me, you know, fitness wise, yeah, that's one part of me, but touching upon this, like, you know, your relationship with people, your relationship with your family, whatever it may be, all that can, it doesn't have to be fitness related. It could be whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And John, you want to?
Absolutely. No, to that point though, and touching on what Steve was saying, I think that it's really easy to get caught up in these goals that are superficial,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And I think the goal is only superficial if you're doing it for superficial reasons, right? So if you want to look a certain way for you, and it's not because you're tied so much to, you know, the aesthetic, but it's more about how it makes you feel as a person. Okay, sure, right? I think it's important to kind of be self-aware and take stock of that kind of stuff. But I think that when it comes down to it, when you're setting goals, you have to start with, like, what's the why there, right? If you have a deeper connection to what it is you're trying to achieve, you're not only going to get more fulfillment out of it, but you're going to work harder for it, right? You're not going to just at the first, you know, 5 a.m. wake up that you don't want to do, just give up if it's something that you actually care about, you know?
Being a morning person.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I know people don't believe it. I used to be a morning person.
Me
I'm just
too.
not anymore. It's a conscious choice not to.
All of us being morning people are like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
but I do think that, you know, really understanding why you're doing it and why it's important to you goes a long way. Because if you have all of these threads that are connecting you to that thing,
Mm-hmm.
you're much less likely to just like drop it at the first sign of hardship, right? And that's where you'll start developing like discipline and being able to cultivate willpower and like be able to push through a little bit more adversity. And I think it's important to, like we talked about, build smaller goals initially so that you can build self-confidence and build some willpower and build some discipline, not 10x discipline, right? It's like start with something that's like manageable in the beginning. But once you've done that for a number of years, at some point you get to set these massive goals for yourself because you understand just what you're capable of. That takes time. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever you are in that kind of spectrum of discipline and development, set goals accordingly to that, you know?
Yeah.
Lizzie?
Give yourself grace. I say that to a lot of people in a lot of different situations. Like we were just talking about mental health. Give yourself grace. Whatever your goal is, it's not linear. Progress isn't linear. So understand that there's a macro, micro, meso cycle, and you're not going to be perfect every single day. But if you're using your SMART goals, you can kind of see like, okay, I did this 4 times last week and then 5 times this week. Like that's progress. It's not perfect, but it's progress. So give yourself grace, be kind to yourself. And like kind of what John just said, I have clients that when I started working with them, they were training once a week because that's all that they've gone from sedentary to 1 session a week. And then it was slowly like just talking about what would it look like if like you maybe went on a walk. A second day of the week, just talking about it, not actually doing it. And then like you notice that 3, 4, 5 months in, they're actually walking once a week and coming to me once a week. And it's like all of a sudden because you were so kind to yourself and like talking to yourself about this is what this would look like, but I'm just not ready for it yet. They get to it. And then it becomes a habit. And then the habit turns into, okay, I can add another goal in.
Right.
And then it turns into this big thing that John was just talking about, where it's like 5 years later, I didn't even know that working out once a week was going to turn into, I'm a member at a CrossFit gym working out 5 times a week. Going to CrossFit functions, hanging out with people, having fun.
To my entire social circle is CrossFit.
Talking about working out all the time.
I would add on to, at least for me, you have people who share that publicly, you know, to their friends, to their circle, whomever it may be. And that's great too, because people need accountability, and, you know, the people that you trust, you know, like for sure, I would believe that there are people there that are going to root for you, and they're going to be there holding you accountable, you know, and celebrating those small wins. For me, I think one of the things I've also been able to see in myself and in others is keeping that private, you know, for my own mental health as well. You know, like there are ups and downs for sure, but sometimes me keeping that private, just like to myself, you know, people ask me, like, you have any goals? I'm like, I do. Suspense.
They're mine.
Right. You know, right. They are mine.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not ready to share that yet.
Yep.
You know, maybe when I have that concrete, you know, maybe I'll be willing to share that story of, you know, like you said, you know, you take that once a week, whatever it may be. And when it becomes this part that you know of yourself that you're able to share, and other people can, you know, go like, oh my gosh, that's also kind of the path that I took, you know. But for me, it's sometimes taking it private, you know, just, I know what I'm after, you know, and I want to be nice to myself too, in case something were to happen that I'm getting derailed from. You know, be kind to myself on the matter and adjust accordingly, you know. But also sometimes having that pressure, somebody following up with me,
Right.
like, you know, so like, where you at on that? It makes me just freeze sometimes, you know. So know yourself. Know yourself if you're ready to share that or not.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where some of that I think is personality driven too, right? Like some people are really good about, I know if I put this out there that I'm going to do this thing, everybody talking to me about it is going to keep me on point and keep me on task. And then there's other people where it's like, if they're really emotionally maybe not in the most steady place, that constant reinforcement is actually going to make them feel way less settled and like way less secure in what they're doing. So I think it is important to be self-aware about that for sure. And I think it's like neither one is better than the other, right? It's like what works for you and what works for that specific goal for sure.
I think it's situational too. Yeah, like what works for that goal. Like I wouldn't have actually applied for a doctorate had I not told my whole family I was going to get a doctorate when I was like 13 years old. I wouldn't have done it. I told my cousin she had to call me a doctor, and I was like, it's going to happen. It's the only reason I did it. But then there's like I decided I wanted to do a whole body recomp, and I didn't tell anyone. And it was the only time I had ever been like fully successful. And I realized like I did it when someone was like, you look different. And I was like, one, that's really rude. But thank you. Like, I'm sure that feels good when you hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, whether you skew towards the personal goals that you don't share with people or you share it with everyone, just to kind of hold you accountable, ask how you can be supportive, right? Because that's a big one. You know, if you are in that realm of, you know, this is for me, I'm doing it for me, I don't need people knowing about it, that's fine. You know, other people might be doing that too, right? So see what they're about and see, kind of ask and play around with that, because it's not always a one size fits all.
For sure.
So Steve, what's your goal and how can I support you?
Just tell me to be here.
Good segue.
Just tell me to be here.
How can I support you with your upcoming goals, Steve?
Oh, that's a great question. 2023 was really cool. I think moving forward for 2024, I want to focus a little bit more on myself. I think 2023 was a lot of coaching, which I absolutely love doing. I joke around and half joke around, say that I enjoy coaching more than I enjoy my own fitness. But I think, 2024, taking that look at my life and kind of seeing where I'm at with my own journey, get back into it.
Yeah.
Tack it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Cool. So going into this, I did not have any goals in mind. Like it was just, I was joking with John about like the vibes are the goal. But talking about everything that we've just talked about, something that I've already started, and it's been my own personal private journey that I feel like I can now share, is my relationship with fitness was always compete. Get stronger. Every single month I wanted to retest, get stronger. And actually, as of 3 weeks ago, my biggest goal has been to like not follow a program. Just like do something 5 days a week. Go for a hike. Come to CrossFit at 5 a.m. Come to CrossFit at 7 p.m. Like just, I don't even want to follow a program. I don't care if I go 3 weeks without doing a squat, as long as I go 3 weeks doing something.
Right.
So that's actually been my starting in 2023 and kind of hoping to go through 2024 is just not having structure to my exercise.
I love that, because I think it's really easy also when you're a coach and you're surrounded by fitness all the time. It's so easy to get burnt out on it.
Yeah.
So I love that for you.
We'll say my legs are struggling because like I'm not looking at the programming. So like yesterday I squatted and then I saw the wall balls today and I was like, cool. That's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
John?
Goals for 2024. There are many of them. I think 2023, this past year, has been a tremendous year of growth for me personally, and for the gym as a whole, for sure. I think that the biggest thing has really been seeing other people leveling up along the way, right? And my big goal, I think, for 2024 is, by the end of 2024, I don't want to be actively coaching classes. And that's a pretty audacious goal, and it'll probably freak some people out that are like listening to this right now. But the reason why I say that is because I don't think that it's the best use of my time as a coach at this point. I really want to work with people on some higher level stuff in terms of like leveling up our coaches here. And I want to coach more workshops and things that involve a lot more nuanced information that is not maybe coached easily in an hour, right? And being able to leverage my experience and do that kind of stuff. So I want to continue to work on my own education, doing a lot of continuing education. I have a lot of certifications in mind this year. Coming back from Costa Rica, learned a ton there for Animal Flow. So I'm just like looking for ways to integrate that stuff on a higher level with everybody else. That's my main goal for this year.
Gio, what's your goal?
So I will get a bit personal on this one. 2023 was not a good year for me. I went through a lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting, prepared for. And as much as I tried to just kind of play it cool or calm and like try not to address it as much or whatever, it affected me on a very deep level. And, like 23, I broke my hand, I got injured, there was a lot of ups and downs there, and it did not help with like my overall state of mind. And I think I'm still processing that. Like, I've gotten back on track. I'm very happy that I've been able to work out again. My hand is healed. But there was a lot of negativity in 2023. And honestly, I don't think I'm ready to set anything for 24. I don't think I've been able to process it all just yet. It looks great so far, is how I'm trying to like move forward from it. But I feel like my goal may just kind of come up naturally, in the new year. I don't know what that's going to be. I really don't. But if at the very least, like as vague as I can be, is probably finding peace, like having that peace of mind truly instilled in my day-to-day life. And again, reinforcing the stuff that I've been so grateful for that has happened in 23. Like I said briefly, like I love having this friendship, this partnership that you and I have, that, what I cling to on a lot of days, like that we can talk about the workouts, what the day-to-day in the gym, and it also makes me feel involved, right? So having that feeling, I don't know what's going to come into 2024, but I do know I want to process 23 and, you know, focus on that first, heal that part before I start trying to put a new goal on top of that.
I like that.
I like that too, for sure.
Makes me want to give you a hug.
On a happier note, we could all use
A hug?
a good hug.
Aw, we could do a group hug right now.
Gio looks profoundly uncomfortable all of a sudden.
You have like group hug with everyone except for Lizzie? Okay. Yeah.
So I think there is a good amount of stuff that did happen in 2023. And I will say for sure, probably one of the most eventful years that we've had at Tough Temple.
Yes.
So Lizzie, what's your favorite event from 2023?
Oh man. There's been a lot. I'd say the one that left like the biggest impact on me was getting to play a part in the Tough Temple Open and like be behind the scenes and like talk to other teams and coaches that came in and like had questions for me, and I knew what was going on, and I knew what John wanted, and I knew what the other coaches wanted, and I knew how to help out in a way that like we've made so many relationships with people that day.
Yeah.
And they still reach out to me and ask like, hey, what are you guys planning for Tough Temple Open 2024? And like, that's cool. Like to feel like people really enjoyed it and to be a part of people really enjoying it.
That was a lot of fun.
It was great.
We had so many people come out to support that, to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, the front desk felt like a bar, you know, like with us just yelling at the TV and watching these lifts.
Yeah.
It was like a sports bar. It felt so awesome. And to know like, you know, like that's our gym, you know, that was such a great vibe.
And like, shout out to everyone who came.
Yes.
Athletes,
Thank
coaches,
you.
audience. Everyone was so respectful of the space.
That event ran so smooth. It was honestly, what is this, the 5th year I think we've done the meet. But it was just, I had more time this year, like you're saying, to like get to know people and talk to people and like have really substantive like conversations with people. It was a blast.
It was awesome. I really liked it.
That was such a good event.
And not to mention, like, John, you and I know like kind of the behind the scenes of everything leading up until that day. Like there was a lot there going on.
Oh, for sure.
And I mean, to see it in its glory on how it came out, I mean, absolutely phenomenal.
It was awesome. I think I said it to Steve like the day of, like seeing how like the Barbell Club showed up to help.
Yeah,
And that was incredible to me.
For sure.
for sure.
That was incredible.
Most definitely.
John?
Don't come to me next. You guys go.
Oh, Steve.
Well, Lizzie stole mine.
Did
Oh,
I steal yours?
I was only there for Sunday, but yeah, that was.
Oh, well, then I didn't steal yours. Whatever.
Yeah, I think I think one of my favorites was the Tough Temple 5K, just
Ooh.
because
That was fun.
I'm
yeah.
not a runner by any means. I don't like running by any means.
But you did
But I
do track and
like
field in college.
squatting. What?
You did
Oh,
do
yeah,
track
well,
and field in college.
Yeah. I picked things up and I threw them.
Yeah.
But you know, like I don't like the long distance running. But
Right.
for me specifically, that event, having that group of people there all on a Saturday morning at the crack of dawn to go do this run through this park I've never been through, that was awesome.
It's a nice park to run
And
through.
it's a little different when, you know, I feel like races, you sign up and it's just a bunch of people that you have no idea. This was a community event where I knew a good amount of the people showing up, but then when we crossed the finish line, we all sat there and cheered for each other, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like most races that I've done are missing.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see that, especially because I hate running so much.
We cannot
But-
stress that enough.
It's like
cannot
this is
stress that
this
enough,
is how
but-
good the event was. I hate
But
running
it
and I
was-
loved the event.
It
Yeah,
was a
that's
great
crazy.
event,
Yeah.
especially the squats part. That was just
You know it's a bad
nice-
workout when you look forward to the squats.
Well, I think what really made it better was John said he tested it and died,
Yeah.
And then we did it and we're like, that wasn't bad. And
Yeah.
we're like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. In a shocking turn of events, people are fitter than me. Yeah.
Well, you did it at like 3:00 on a Sunday.
Oh yeah,
I was gonna say,
it
John was probably,
like,
9:00.
hungover.
Yeah.
There were mistakes were made. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like
for
he was
sure.
probably hungover, accidentally forgot to eat
There was
lunch.
no hangover, but it was very hot. It was
Forgot
like
his shoes.
poor timing. Yeah, did not think that through. Yeah. What about you, G?
I think probably the most memorable one. I mean, there's a lot, but the Moco Throwdown. The
Mhm.
Moco Throwdown for, again, kind of the behind the scenes that, like, we made that happen.
Yeah.
You know, and to see the people come out, to see this gym like packed, you know, just really heartwarming. It was very personal to me too, to see some of my friends that had come out and like
Mhm.
seeing the gym, you know, in person too. It was very special. It was very special, and to see a lot of our athletes from our gym throw down as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Top 10
like
finish.
Good job.
it was pretty amazing. So the road leading up to the Moco Throwdown and everything running the way it did,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was thanks to all the volunteers, everybody who showed up, and people who showed up and stayed longer than
Mhm.
what they had anticipated. Stephen Voyner for jumping in, you know, as a partner,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I remember that.
I mean, that's camaraderie, you know, that's
Yeah.
what CrossFit is all about, you know, and I thought that was extremely special. So that's gonna stay with me, and I'm looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
Big things for next year.
Big things for next year. Yeah.
I'm nervous.
So for me, I think it's really hard to put my finger on like any one thing,
Mhm.
right? But I really feel like this year was just a standout year for us. Like I think of, to kind of bring it all full circle, right? Talking about like resolutions and things like that. Like I used to work at a Globo gym, and they capitalize on people setting resolutions, buying a gym membership and never showing up. And the whole reason why I wanted to start this place was because I wanted a place where people actually showed up and actually got results and build a community around that, right? And we've grown incrementally over, you know, the last 10 years or so, but this year we like doubled in
Yeah,
size.
yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating when
Right.
I use that number. Like we have grown our membership tremendously to the point where we had to take over an additional bay, right? Which was really the original plan when we moved to this location. There was always this thought of we're going to have these separate studios for these separate programs, and we had to kind of scale that back because of COVID and everything else. And the room we're sitting in right now used to be like HIIT and barbell and yoga and miscellaneous. It was just like all of this stuff. And
It's crazy to think like how,
so like,
yeah,
so this year we, you know, brought on a stretch therapist, built out a recovery suite, built a barbell studio. So now HIIT and kettlebell have their own studio so they
Mhm.
can live in here. Barbell has its own space so it can grow and breathe. Meanwhile, CrossFit has grown. Like, so everything has kind of grown so sequentially. And as part of that, you know, we signed like a long-term lease. We're here for another 9 years. And the whole idea is like, we are positioned now to just grow. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I think that, you know, we talk about big picture stuff. Like the big picture goals are the stuff that have kept me awake at night for the last like 2-3 years. It's been one thing after another. I'm sure I'm going to find some other stuff to obsess on in 2024.
Coffee shop.
But I really feel like this year we turned a corner in a lot of ways. And I think that if I had to like stick a pin in any one thing, it's I really am proud of the team that we've built this year.
Mm.
You know, to your point about like our connection and that kind of stuff.
I'm getting jealous.
It's really easy, I think, to when you're this involved, and this is for everybody, but Gio I know can relate to it because he was managing a location before. It's very isolating right? Like you can have all of this stuff going on and just feel like you're the only one that gets it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I feel like as collectively as a team, we've come together so much more. Like everybody gets it, and they know where we're going. They know like what's up, and with that, there's a lot more momentum. There's a lot more support. There's a lot more excitement, and it also raises the bar of what we can do together, and that fucking fires me up, like no doubt.
Language.
Let's go.
Captain America.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You got it.
You have to do like the dolphin noises. Over
Yeah. I will say one thing that is really cool about this gym that I think like shocks me every time is the amount of people that dabble in different things.
Mm-hmm.
Being someone that, like I said, I come from like a very strict workout regimen. Sometimes I look like at who's coming out the door and I'm like, what? Aren't you normally over there? And it's just really cool to get used to that. Like, no, you do all these classes. You do all these things, and it's not because we're shaming people.
Right.
It's because they want to do it.
Yeah. Everybody's here having a good time.
Yeah, it's cool. What?
I'm honestly a little bit at a loss for words because I think this is a very special episode. You know, for kind of recap. I'm not one for having emotions.
You're literally the most emotional person I know.
No, I think it's very special, and I think we owe a very special thank you to you, John, for being our leader, and just keeping it all together. Like I don't think we say it enough, but thank you for all that you do here at the gym, keeping us level and everything else.
Did everyone bring the presents for him that we talked about? No?
Awkward.
We all forgot. We were going to get you presents.
Yeah.
Anyway, so on that note, thank you guys so much. Also, I want to say we're grateful for starting this podcast in 2023. And this is only the beginning. We can't wait to put out new episodes. Bring in some new guests onto the podcast as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Steve, do you want to give our final little goodbyes?
Yeah, definitely. Catch us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. We just really enjoy doing this. It's a good time for us to kind of catch up and share some knowledge that we have with you. So let us know what you want to hear about next. I'm sure everybody talks to Gio, so you hear most of it. But
I don't know about all that, but thank you guys, truly. And we hope to be a part of your life for 2024 and for many years to come.
In 2024.
Happy holidays.
Au revoir, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.